Have you ever wondered how the Victorian people decorated their Christmas trees? Well, today I'm going to go over some of that with you in our first holiday video from the archives. And I'm also going to be showing you how to actually make some Victorian themed Christmas tree ornaments at home. So the Victorian people usually used things that were natural or things that they could easily find in their kitchens or homes. So they used things like pine cones and nuts, and they even used oranges and other types of fruit like lemons, that sort of thing. So the first ornament I'm going to be teaching you how to make in this video are dried orange slices. So like I said before, the Victorians would use things like oranges, lemons, cranberries. They would actually dry the fruit and then they would hang them in their trees. And of course they would have been using an actual real tree and not an artificial one like a lot of us have today in our homes. So to start off, they're very simple to make. All you need is an orange or a lemon, depending on how many you'd like to make a couple oranges. I'm just using one to kind of show you how to make the slices today. And you'll need a little cutting board for cutting your orange or lemon, whatever you'd like to make, a knife, and then you'll also need a tray, a baking sheet, and parchment paper, which I'll get to in a little bit. So to start off, you're going to cut your orange or lemon into slices. So I have mine here ready to go on the cutting board. So you're going to want to cut your orange or lemon widthwise. So you'll start off by cutting off one end. And then you're simply going to cut some slices, probably about, I would say, half an inch thick. So there's one there. And you're just going to continue to cut all the way through the orange or lemon. You don't want your slices too thin because then when you put them in the oven later, they might burn because they're so thin. But if they're too thick, then they will take longer to dry out. All right, so once you've got however many slices you would like to dry out, it's fairly easy. If there's any seeds, you can just poke them out and then they're good to go. So now the next step is simply the drying part of making these ornaments. So what you'll do is grab a baking sheet, and as the slices dry in the oven, they will lose some of their juices and moisture and they will stick and become sticky on the sheet. So you'll want to line the tray with tinfoil or parchment paper. So I'm going to use parchment paper to line my tray. So I'm just going to get some scissors here. So you just want to cut the paper to the size of your tray so that it fits nicely. And then you're going to place your slices all along with some space in between. And then to dry them, you'll want to set your oven for about 250 Fahrenheit. If the oven's too hot, they'll burn, and if it's not hot enough, it'll take quite a long time for them to dry out in the oven. So what you'll do is put them in once your oven is good to go at that temperature for about 2 to 3 hours. And you'll want to keep checking on the slices to make sure that they're not burning. So if you start seeing some blackening or dark brown discoloration in the center of the slices, you'll want to take them out before they burn. It also helps if you flip them 2 or 3 times. So maybe every 30 minutes or so, you'll want to take them out of the oven and flip the slices over so then they get a nice color and they get dried all around evenly around the slices. Now, the Victorian people didn't really have modern day ovens, so they might use in later years their ovens at home, or they might let them sit out kind of in the sun to dry, or sometimes they would have them dry kind of hanging over a fireplace or that sort of thing. So once your orange or lemon slices are all done, you'll remove them from the oven, and using tongs, because they will be hot, you want to place them on a wire cooling rack. So you can see that the longer you keep them in, the more browning they will get. If you want your slices to be a little bit jelly-like in consistency and a little bit larger, you'll want to take them out sooner. If you want them drier and crispier and with this little bit of browning, which kind of looks nice and adds a bit of an artistic flair, then you'll want to leave them in longer. So once they are cooled off and dried, they will harden up a bit more than when you first take them out of the oven. Traditionally, what the Victorian people would do once they had their dried fruit all ready to go is they would use a bit of twine or ribbon to hang it on their Christmas tree. So with one of your slices, you can either poke a hole through the top so you can weave the ribbon through, or if you have one like this that already has a hole in the middle, you can simply just put it through like this. And then however long you would like it, you can tie it at the top. And you could use twine, you don't have to use ribbon. And then you'll just cut the ribbon or twine, and it's good to go to hang on your tree. Now, like I said, the Victorians would have been using twine or ribbon, or they maybe painted on the orange slices with paint. Now, today we have wonderful things like glitter glue. So if you want to get really creative, you could always add a bit of this to your orange slice and kind of make the whole thing glittery and red. Whatever you would like to add, you could glue on little beads, you could add sparkles, however you would like to jazz it up. But if you want the more traditional look, just a simple piece of twine or ribbon through the center of the orange slice will make it have that vintage Victorian vibe. So the next Victorian Christmas ornament craft I'm going to be showing you how to make are gilded pine cones. So Victorian people used things like nuts and pine cones on their Christmas trees. Pine cones could be found in their yards, so it was kind of a cheap and easy way to add some natural decoration to their trees. And things like walnuts and other types of nuts they could buy at the marketplace, and then they could use them as well. They also would roast nuts, and then they would place them on their trees and eat them. But sometimes, obviously, if they're painted, the paint was toxic, and I would not recommend eating painted walnuts like the Victorians may have. But what I'm going to show you how to do is gild some pine cones. So gilding just means having the outside kind of covered in gold. Now you could do gold and silver. So I have some here that I've done already. So you can see these pine cones. I have this one kind of painted in a gold color, and then this one painted in silver. So to make these at home, all you need are pine cones, or if you'd like to use walnuts, it's up to you, some gold and silver paint, and I'm also going to be using white paint. You could really color the pine cones any color you'd like. I'm just doing the more traditional Victorian gilded look, which was silver and gold. So these are kind of shorter pine cones, but I'm going to be using a longer one that I actually just found in my yard. So I've got my paint here, So really, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is get some acrylic paint and a paintbrush. And then what you want to do is paint the outside of your pine cone or nut. And it's acrylic paint, so it'll stick fairly easily. And it'll take a little bit of patience, and it's a little bit tedious, but it can be quite therapeutic actually. And all you're doing is just painting all along the outside. And if you want to really get into the details, you could also paint on the inside and do the actual inside of the pine cone so that it looks like it's covered in gold from every angle. So I'm going to finish this one off. What I'm also going to do is add a little bit of white paint on the outside edges of the pine cone so that it looks like there's some snow stuck to the pine cone as well. So I will show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, so my pine cone is all painted. So now I just have to let it dry. But these other ones, like I said, I pre-painted. So once you have all your pine cones or walnuts, depending on what you're using, painted, you can either stick them in the tree like this, or you could tie a bit of ribbon around the top, and then using the ribbon, you could hang it from your Christmas tree. So the last ornament we're going to be looking at making in this video are tinfoil ornaments. So tinfoil was fairly accessible for Victorian people to get. You would have certain types of soft cheese wrapped in tinfoil, the inside of tobacco that you would purchase at the store would have tinfoil in the package. There was sometimes candy wrapped in tinfoil. So a lot of children would actually keep this tinfoil that they would collect through the year, and then they would make their Christmas ornaments out of it. So as you can see, there's sort of a trend here where Victorian people kind of use what they have at hand to make their Victorian ornaments at home. So they were kind of the original DIY crafters. So what I have here are two types of tinfoil ornaments. So one is actually a garland, and this one's pretty easy to make. A little bit more complicated were these fringe kind of tinfoil ornaments. So I'm going to start off with the garland first, and then we'll get to the more difficult one after. So to make our Victorian style tinfoil garland, all you need is tinfoil and a pair of scissors. So depending on how long you would like to make the garland, it doesn't really matter which size. You just kind of need a rectangle shape cut out of the tinfoil. So I'm going to cut mine here. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you won't really notice the flaws once it's unraveled. So once you have your rectangle cut out of your tinfoil, you're going to fold it over lengthwise once. And then once you have that, you're going to start making cuts along the tinfoil. So you're going to cut, I guess, about an inch in. And then you're going to, an inch in width, and then you're going to cut almost all the way to the end of the rectangle, but stop so that there's a little bit of space left. And then you're going to do that on the other side, beside the cut that you just made. Making sure you're leaving about an inch or so each time. Then you're going to go back, and you're going to cut again, stopping just about an inch short of the edge. So you can see there's this zigzag kind of pattern. So going to keep going along, and then you're going to rotate again. Then you're going to cut. So you're going to keep cutting, and as you can see, as I kind of pull it out, you can see that it's taking this shape, so it's almost like a bunch of M's. So I'm going to finish cutting this, and then I'll show you what it looks like once it's all cut all the way across the tinfoil rectangle. So I have all of my cuts made in the tinfoil here. So now what you'll have to do is actually unfold it. So if you remember, we folded at the start before we started cutting. So you're basically just unfolding it carefully. You can see the shiny side is showing now. So you're going to go along and unfold each part. And then once it's unfolded, all you have to do is grab the two sides and pull it out, and it's a garland. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our tinfoil fringe. This is a fairly large one, but you can make a smaller one like the one I'm making now if you'd like. So what you'll need is tinfoil, scissors, and string or yarn. And you'll have to cut, like I've already done, 3 pieces of tinfoil into kind of long rectangles that are roughly about the same size. And then you're going to layer them up like this on top of each other. And then, whichever side is easier to cut, mine's a little bit curled, so I'm going to flip it over. You are going to gather them all together and kind of make sure the edges are all lined up. And then you're going to make cuts into the tinfoil and then stopping about 1 inch short. And you're going to go along the same side. You're going to keep making these cuts all the way along, stopping about 1 inch short each time. Now you can make the cuts not as wide as I am. It depends on how you would like your fringe to look. If you want wider strips or thinner strips, it's completely up to you. So you just keep cutting all the way along. You can even change the size, do some thin, do some thick. It really doesn't matter that much. And then you're getting close to the end. And just make your last cut here. Okay, so once you finish your cuts, you're going to take your string or your yarn and you're going to place it along the uncut side of the tinfoil. And you're going to leave a little bit out on the edge so that you have some string to hang it from your tree. Now what you need to do is wrap the tinfoil kind of tightly around the string. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm wrapping it and pushing it down so that the string is tucked inside the uncut side of the tinfoil. So you're going to keep doing that. You want your string to go all the way along the length of the fringe. That. And then you're at the end here, like that. Now you can fold it over more if you'd like, just to make sure the string is really tucked inside. And then what you're going to do is cut off this string at the end. So it looks like this. Now, what you could do is you could twist it so that it has this kind of twisted look. Or, like I did with my other one, if you unfold the layers like this, and you go along and you keep unfolding each layer, like I'm doing here, it gives it that kind of crazier, wackier look, where there's all kinds of pieces of tinfoil kind of going every which way. So you can see as I'm unfolding, they're becoming loose. So you just keep unfolding each section, and I will show you what that looks like when that's done. So the last step in your tinfoil fringe is to kind of bend them every which way. So you want to bend them so that they're kind of going up and down. You can go like this so then they kind of get looser. You could twist it so that it twists sort of all over the place. So the more you play with the little pieces, the more wackier it'll look. And eventually it will kind of look like this.